there everyone, Coach Alexa here. I wanted to talk to you a little bit in a series of videos about injuries. They probably will happen to you if you're a runner at some point in your running career. So I wanted to give you some information about how to prevent them, what to do if you pick one up, just a bit of background and useful information hopefully. Broadly speaking, there are two categories of injuries using the medical terminology: acute or chronic. So acute means it's something that came on pretty suddenly and is definitely something that kind of arrived more of I guess an accidental injury, so maybe going over your ankle or having a fall, or a sudden sort of damage that's been done to perhaps a muscle or something like that. So something that came on quite suddenly and is quite obvious often that you should stop running and rest it for a few days because it's probably quite painful. This is often accompanied by swelling, maybe bruising, heat in the area. So those are your body's natural ways of starting the healing process. So lots of fluid and kind of resources for helping the healing of that area is already being really sent to that area to start the repair process, which is great. One word of warning on that front: anti-inflammatories actually dampen that reaction, which might seem like a good thing, but they actually dampen that healing response as well. So try and stay off the anti-inflammatories for a few days post an acute injury, because it will help the healing process. Stick to rest, ice, compression and elevation. Of course, if it has been quite painful or you're a little bit worried that something else might be going on, always worth getting it checked out. So going to your local sort of NHS walk-in clinic, if it's particularly traumatic accident or like a trip or a fall or something like that, then potentially even worth going to A&E. If it's something that you're happy and comfortable sort of treating at home with first aid, it's still potentially worth going then to look at a physio appointment in 1 or 2 weeks' time after that initial sort of swelling, heat and pain response has gone down. Firstly, if it was something like going over on your ankle, there's potentially some tendon or ligament damage in there. Muscles heal really quickly, but tendons and ligaments take a little bit longer to heal. So you'll need to start thinking about maybe some rehab for the area that's been damaged, and also get some advice on how and when to return to run, depending on what's been damaged. The other side of things to think about is whether you can do any preventative stuff. So if it wasn't more of a sort of accident or a trip, it was a muscle that suddenly got very angry, again it is worth going to see a physio once those initial symptoms have calmed down a little bit to see what the reason behind that was and whether there's any sort of rehabilitation or future strengthening you can do to prevent it from happening again. The other side of injuries, again from a medical terminology point of view, what's called chronic. Chronic injuries often start as a little bit of a niggle, maybe stiffness, maybe slight soreness might come and go, and it'll either bubble along in the background or maybe it will gradually get more frequent and more painful. Chronic effectively means that it's something that's continuing for quite a long time. These injuries are more likely to be coming from something like overtraining or upping your mileage too soon or not including enough recovery. Or there might be a little bit of something going on with your running form or your posture, or unevenness in your gait or asymmetry in your leg strength, a whole host of different things that could be going on. So things to do when a chronic injury is creeping up on you a little bit is something I'll cover in another video, but it's a little bit of a different sort of set of things to think about than it is for something that comes on really suddenly, like that acute category I've just talked through. Injuries are a pretty kind of common topic of questions from the runners that I work with. So if you want to influence at all some of the videos that I do in this series, you've got questions, specific areas that you want me to cover, just let me know. Happy running.